Yo, what's good, guys? I haven't done one of these in a while, but today I decided I wanted to do a little market recap of the pairs I trade, which is GJ, GA, GN, and then EA, EN, and EJ. So those six pairs, I'm just going to go over what I think fundamentally, where the market's at right now, why it's moved the way it has been for the last few weeks, and where I think they could possibly go. Um, so let's just jump right into it. Here we have the British pound, Japanese yen. So we're going to start off with the British pound. It has been somewhat neutral, but definitely more bearish in the last few weeks for a few reasons. One of them being investors around the world are selling everything and just putting their money into US dollars, and parking their money there until this mess clears up. um, Reason number two is there's been a lot of easing with the Bank of England, and so that has obviously weakened the currency, which is the pound. And the third reason is coronavirus cases have increased in the UK, and obviously that's going to start affecting business and the economy there. So all those reasons, it's definitely been more bearish, aka there's been more sellers, and we could see that in the pound yen chart here, which has been in a crazy downtrend the last few weeks. We have seen a nice little pullback, but so where do I think the pound is going to head? Honestly, I would say it's probably going to continue to weaken for the next few weeks at least, because of the easing from the central bank, because their economy is getting shut down because of the virus. Numbers will start to come out, and of course they will be worse in terms of data. Honestly, nothing really positive is coming out of England. So I don't expect a huge bull run anytime soon. It could consolidate. We could see a little bit of a pullback. However, I wouldn't necessarily take that as it being bullish. So I don't see any too much upside for the pound at the moment. Once this whole virus thing clears up in who knows how long, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, I could see a nice recovery for the pound. But that is dependent on trade talks. So as of right now, those aren't going too well. So we just gotta wait and see. For the yen, as you can tell, the yen has been super strong over the last few weeks, and of course, because it is a safe haven, things have been crazy. Stock markets are tanking. The world is in a panic, and so investors buy up the yen, and that's what's happened. So we've seen the yen on a crazy bull run. Do I expect it to stop anytime soon? Not necessarily. I could see it pausing. I could see it pausing and consolidating a little bit. But honestly, we haven't really reached the peak of this craziness. I think it's coming up pretty soon, within a few weeks. I think we'll probably see a peak in cases, but as of right now, we haven't reached the peak, so I don't think fears will die down anytime soon. I could potentially see this thing headed lower, or at least consolidate, not head too much higher. So I would say risks are to the downside, so it'd be more favorable to go short. But that being said, we have seen a huge bull run for the yen. I could see some consolidation for it in the time being. Just gotta wait and see. Next up, we already covered the pound, so let's just go over the Australian dollar. As you can see, it has just been very weak since the beginning of the year. Starting off, it was weak because of the whole U.S.-Iran tensions, and then that was resolved somewhat quickly. And then basically immediately after that, we had the whole coronavirus thing pop up in China, which started it on this path to, this huge bull run. So for the pound, which it's not really a bull run for the pound, it's more just showing off how weak the Australian dollar is. And that's why I've said the pound has been somewhat neutral, bearish, because, as we can see, this is a pound pair, but it has been a very nice uptrend. So definitely fear is driving the market, meaning the Australian dollar, which is a risk-on currency, which means that investors only like investing in the Australian dollar when things are going good, because it is a riskier currency to own, and no one wants to own anything risky when things are going bad. So, like right now, they are dumping their Australian dollars, selling it, so it's very weak, and we can see that here. Now, where it's at right now, it's just been consolidating, sort of. It has been heading higher, still making higher highs. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Given, like I said, we haven't really reached the peak. It's getting there, but we're only just starting to see cases in the U.S. Increase exponentially. Places in Europe are increasing exponentially, like France and Germany. So I don't think we've really reached the peak. I see fears increasing. I see this thing headed higher for the time being. So that's what I'm thinking. Buy the dips, until things change. So sort of the same thing for the New Zealand dollar. However, it has been a little bit less weak. As you can sort of see, it hasn't been on quite the strong bull run. Why I think that is, one, they haven't been hit too hard in terms of coronavirus cases. They're very, very, very few. So that's sort of helping it out a little bit, even though it is a risk-on currency, just like the Australian dollar. So by its very nature, it's getting sold off at the moment. But yeah, as you can see, definitely more neutral in the time being, since both these are somewhat weak. I should say somewhat more neutral, so this thing isn't really moving much. Where I see this thing headed higher, maybe. I could see it heading higher, but I wouldn't really touch it. It's one of those situations where it's sort of in between. It's more neutral, so I probably wouldn't trade it. Just thinking from like a, just a investor standpoint, this thing is neutral. So, there's no point in trading that. This thing, definitely in an uptrend, definitely in a downtrend. However, this, not moving much. So I personally probably wouldn't touch it. But if I had to put money on it, I would say this thing is headed higher. Because like I said, fears have not quite increased. Next up, the Euro Australian dollar. So this thing's just been crazy. You can just see that. The reason GA doesn't look like this is just because the pound has been keeping it down. However, the euro has been in a crazy bull run. The Australian dollar has just been getting killed. And as a result, we see this thing just, looking like a penny stock almost. It's quite crazy. But so the euro has been very strong recently, mostly because investors have been selling the euro for a long time, and just recently now they need to get out of those positions. They're short positions. So they need to cover them, and by covering their short positions, you need to buy. So there's a ton of buyers, and of course, as more buyers enter, people who have short positions are going to get out of them even quicker, and so this thing has just been going crazy. That's the best sort of way I have to explain it. But as of right now, the euro is still very strong. And the Australian dollar is still very weak, so I see this thing headed higher. Maybe not from right here. It might fizzle out a little before, continuing up. I don't know if I would say it might breach these highs. It very much could. I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't be going short. Basically, that if I had to say anything with certainty, I wouldn't be going short this pair. But it does look quite crazy. Sort of a similar thing, basically the exact same thing for Euro NZD, just a little less parabolic because, as I stated, New Zealand dollar is slightly less weak than the Australian dollar. For the reasons I mentioned. Also, another thing I should point out: the New Zealand, their economy is a lot better at the moment than Australia, so that's also helping it a little bit. And lastly, we have two strong currencies together, which looks like this. That's why you need to know what's strong and what's weak, so you know what to avoid. As I mentioned, Euro is very strong, Yen is very strong. What happens when two pairs are both very weak, or both neutral, or both strong? We see it just chopping around. So I've honestly haven't traded this pair in like quite a while. I've just haven't even really looked at it because, like I mentioned, they're both strong. It's just gonna chop around. Won't have any definitive trend. I mean, it's headed lower a little bit, but now it's just sort of like in a triangle, consolidating. My recommendation would be probably like not to touch it, to be honest, until things change, until maybe the Euro weekends or the Yen weekends. Then you can take it one way or the other. But as of right now, I don't see anything of interest there. So yeah, that's where I think the current state of things are currently in the market. At least, like I said, for the pairs I trade, there are many pairs out there, many currencies out there that I did not cover, but this is what I look at. So I hope you guys gained something from this. Just a little glimpse on how I look at things fundamentally. I like pairing strong and weak together, because that creates nice trends. And it's helpful not only to find pairs to trade, but also just knowing what pairs to avoid in certain times. Like this, for example, or GN, for example. Just knowing which pairs are going to chop around more than others, so sort of to avoid it, is, I would say it's pretty helpful. But yeah, guys, I hope this helped give you a glimpse on how I like to look at things, how I like pairing things together, and looking at, before I look at the technicals, what pairs do I want to go trade, and also what direction do I want to trade them. This is sort of, what I do in my head, and I would like to say, I'd like to think it works out pretty well. And it only makes sense if you have two strong currencies, or two weak currencies, or two neutral currencies. Buyers and sellers are not going to push price one way very aggressively, so no trend is going to form. That's just sort of how markets work, not just the Forex market, but all sort of financial markets work that way. If there's no reason for a trend to form, then there really won't be a trend to form. If there's nothing driving the market won't drive, if that makes sense. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Haven't done one of these in a long time, but I actually enjoy doing them, so I might try to do it a little more often. Have a great weekend, guys. Market opens tomorrow, but have a great rest of your weekend. I'm honestly just in my house doing back testing, so that's kind of fun. But hope you guys are enjoying time with family, or relaxing, or doing whatever it is you want to do. Make sure to wash your hands, and I'll talk to you guys later.